And it's an emergency meeting. Also, it's how we met Sarah.
Exactly. Having flashbacks, and literally almost a year ago, right?
Has it been? Yeah.
Yeah, almost.
It's been a journey here, Sarah.
I
But
think,
you had an opening statement here that we wanted to start off with.
yes, not a shocker, because our topic here is the announcement, at least on the the community forum, evolving Jira terminology projects will soon be spaces.
And how do we feel about this? I'm seeing a mix in the comments within LinkedIn posts.
I think we are going to be exactly up against the right, whoever is, how do I say this? The same people, right, who had concerns over work items, who maybe want to pigeonhole. I'm just going to say it, who maybe want to pigeonhole Atlassian products a little bit more, right? Who are uncomfortable with its evolution and spread are going to be a little more resistant.
At what point do we lose the identity? At what point does Jira not be Jira anymore? You change enough parts out.
That's okay, because you know what? The two of you, I'm going to be really weird about this, friends, but let's just talk about Lena and Alex for a second, right? So at some point, the two of you, right, you were introduced, you got to know each other, maybe became friends, started dating, got married, became parents, right? So you went from maybe a student into becoming a partner in life to somebody, to a parent. Those are all those evolutions, and they're all good, and they're all okay.
So in
and
other
I
words,
think
Jira's,
that's what's happening here. But you're still Alex, and she's still Lena.
Jira is growing up. She's 25 years old.
See?
And in those terrible twos.
It's about its time, right? It is. I see a lot of parallels with the concepts of what does maturity mean and how things evolve like this. And this, to me, absolutely feels just like that step in the journey.
So I am kind of torn. I'm in the middle here, because I agree that projects just confuses the crap out of people.
Totes.
That's just, so many people have a project manager. So many companies work in projects. Projects get approved. Projects have timelines. Projects have budgets. And then we have a Jira project. And that just mixes the whole thing up. And then we have like plans that work off of projects. And then we have project issue types that people make. And it's so many projects coming all at us at the same time that I, for one, am happy that they're changing the name, because the number of times that I've had to describe to people that a project is like a house, just so that they can understand it's a container and not an actual project management project, is going to be something I'm looking forward to not having to explain ever again in my life.
Now, do you both think that using space is going to be confusing? Because Confluence uses spaces, right?
Yeah, I would have gone with workspace. I would not have.
Yeah, adding the workspace might have added a little more clarity, I guess, right?
Yeah, because now you've opened a new can of worms.
Right, which one of our friends posted about earlier. Our friend Josh, right? He's like, okay, he might be a little like me. We're looking for signals. Oh, actually, sorry, Josh Costello.
Oh, okay.
I'm probably going to say it wrong.
Stand by.
Other Joshes. Too many Joshes. There you go.
Too many Joshes in the Atlassian ecosystem. Let's go look at Mr. Costello. What's he got going on?
He's saying I saw his earlier. That was kind of a, what is this signal? Right? Does this signal further consolidation of what's going on across the Atlassian products? Yeah. And so to your point, right, would workspace have been better? I guess it depends upon where it's going, because does it eventually become space? When we see Jira here, Confluence here, being able to open those things up on the same page, is that I'm just in this space?
So that's another interesting thing, right? So at what point does Confluence and Jira kind of just become a tool, a single tool? Because we're already seeing, like you said, right, those side-by-side Jira and Confluence. with the smart links, you're seeing a lot of the elements of Jira inside of Confluence very natively. Like I can go and update tickets and look at tickets and look at my timelines and stuff from without ever having to leave Confluence. And so it's interesting. I wonder what the bigger play is.
See, and again, big fan here. Because of all of those questions that I feel like we have to answer over and over, and because it can be different depending on situations. But when do I use Jira? When do I use Confluence?
Yeah, because I was just on a call with a client not too long ago, and they told me, "Hey, Alex, I just want to see my tasks in one place." I'm like, "Well, your tasks from Confluence that are captured from the task macro are not the same thing as a task in Jira. But what if they could be?"
Right?
Right?
No, I'm kidding. That's the next thing.
Next update.
Atlassian, if you're watching.
Confluence tasks are now Confluence work items.
Well, I mean, they're so close, right? It's so the barrier. I don't know if you've seen, but I've actually tried the new table feature in Confluence where you can build a table and you just highlight the table and all the tickets are automatically now populated in Jira.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, well, you're getting dangerously close.
That is, yeah, because that's been available. That's one of my favorite cheat hack kind of things. Although unless they've updated it where you can use more of the columns from the table to populate more of the fields, I don't know.
Yeah, they're working on that from what I last heard because they only had like description and summary.
Right? And
But
you're like,
they said they were coming. More were coming. I'm like, oh, hopefully, because this is a cool feature. But yeah, so I can see a world or a phenomenon where we just have a space centered around a team. Now, teamwork graph starts to make sense, Sarah.
Well, wait, but I don't know that I would start even say a team though.
What would you go with?
That's a lean right into a team thing, but it's whatever you want.
It can be whatever you want, but I think at some point though you do need to architect this in a way that makes sense, because one of the discussions that you have when you create a new Jira project is, well, is it based on department? Is it based on engineering discipline? Is it based on an actual project? Is it based on a team? Right? And there's a lot of different ways to craft this, but you want to find a method to structure your projects around. And so if we do have this bleed between spaces and Jira and spaces and Confluence, see, I'm already getting confused and it's only been 2 minutes. then you do need to kind of play. I think us as admins need to have an answer for what becomes in a space. And how do we organize around that?
What space? Like, I feel like Confluence is mostly for documentation, right? And that's where you keep all your release documentation for your customers.
Right, but they're usually tied
to like, no.
Well, I mean, Confluence could be for whatever you want, but they're usually tied to a Jira project.
There's like, no.
Sarah uses Jira and Confluence in much different ways than I do.
Yeah, and that's exactly right? Because like you are much, I don't want to say boxed in per se, right? But I do think you have a sense of this is what it does. And because my background is not an IT technical background, my background is more so like I was the more technical of the people I was working with. So I was adopting the tools and then doing a lot of adapting of the tools for the kinds of work I was doing. So where I was working in a training environment, I was working in an HR environment, I was working in a marketing environment. So I see the tool in a way that, again, adapts a lot more than how you might be approaching it. And I've completely lost my point here, by the way, because I'm really distracted by something.
Well, the point I was trying to make was that when you have too much flexibility, I think teams tend to trip up and have a failure to launch. Sure. And so I think we need, I know that you could do whatever you want, but a lot of teams need literally an ABC, spell it out for me, because I don't know how to take my next one. It's like that leaf from it's always that leaf from A Bug's Life, right? When the leaf falls down on the ant trail and they get lost and they're like, where do we go from here? And like Flick comes and like, you got to go around the leaf. I feel like that's us as Jira admins. You got to tell people to go around the leaf. And this is just a new leaf that just fell.
So it's an interesting thing though too, right? Because then if we as we look at this, and I'm looking at their example names underneath, which anybody watching this later or at some point raise your hand and go, oh my God, having to learn actual project names is actually the most difficult thing I'm dealing with right now, as opposed to the acronyms, right? As opposed to our keys for our projects or spaces. But yeah, so like what is that? Right? Because the Team Horizon, Beyond Gravity, Galactic Warriors, we see a reference to a team, but then we see a reference to, again, just something else.
Yeah, no, and then, but again, the bleeding, the overbleed between the two tools is scaring me now, right? Because as you just said, your space key in Confluence, you have space keys that you can also change. And so as an admin, you now get a request to change your space key. You're going to go with space in Jira or space in Confluence?
And
oh my.
So here again, though, is where, so again, I'm thinking about a project over in Cloud now, and we have a whole Confluence area, right? We have pages we can create straight in Jira. Similarly, we can create issues straight from Confluence. So again, how are those things coming together? And at what point does it even matter? Because once again, you know how I'm going to this like single UI eventually.
Right. Yeah. No, because I can see that, right? Like you swap this Jira thing with just, I don't know, Atlassian. And then you have knowledge management or pages, and that's it. You don't leave the tool. It's all there. Your hierarchy is brought in. And yeah, it's I think Atlassian suspicious is the word that comes to my mind. And Chris over here, Chris says, whoa, and says, oh man, struggling with this as an admin. I agree that with moving from projects, but going with spaces, yeah. That's kind of where we're at, Christopher. We're like, I would have personally picked workspaces if I had to pick, just so that there's enough similarities, but enough segregation that you don't confuse the two.
Yeah.
So as a user, the primary thing that as a user I use is the board, right?
I mean, I don't want to say something that Sarah's gonna get mad at, but yeah.
I would disagree with.
So it's like, is there any other place where they use boards instead of calling it spaces? They could have called it boards.
Yeah. Well, so I have a problem with that too, though, right? Because it depends. I'll tell you this much. And Sarah, you can go first if you want.
No, please.
Okay. So here's my big pet peeve, right? When people call a project a board, and I go, you can't do that. And they're like, why not? I'm like, because a project can have multiple boards. But that's only when you're using Jira on hard mode. For those using Jira on easy mode, whether you're on a team managed project or you're on a work management template, you only have one board. But you're using Jira in a handicapped way at that point.
Okay.
And so, yeah, should you have called it board, it probably would have felt more natural to people. But I will tell you that horrific tool that we used last year, the shortcut or whatever it was we were using.
Oh.
Have you ever used that tool? It was a shortcut?
I think so.
Yeah, shortcut. So there's a shortcut. There's a competitor
an actual
Jira
thing called shortcut.
Right. Yeah, there's a thing called work shortcut, and so this thing revolves around a board and not a project. And let me tell you, it's a nightmare to use. So not a good idea. Don't do that. But what I am seeing or thinking about is more on ClickUp, because look at ClickUp here. We have Teams, we have Docs, right? Which is all of our wiki, which is our knowledge base, right? And then we have somewhere in here, or down here in our spaces, we then have boards and we have lists and we have, I just think it's overwhelming for regular users that are non-IT. But if you're comparing yourself to ClickUp, then this makes sense.
Kind of looks similar. I'm looking at both UIs right now.
Let me get rid of all this advertisement stuff. But yeah, you can see here that we have spaces in ClickUp. Okay. And then you create a project.
Oh, you have a space and then the project?
Yeah, and then inside your project, you create your board, and then you create your list or your calendar view or your table view, whatever you want. But to Sarah's point, we also have our docs
in the same area, right?
In the same application. You don't leave ClickUp to go to another tool. And if I wanted to have my notes within a team space, you see how I have my team space here, but then I
Mhm.
have lists, but I also have documentation inside of that team.
Mm.
Mhm.
So
Oh wait, so you put everything, you put the boards and the documentation all in one?
all in one space. But
Mm.
then you pick: do you want a board? Do you want knowledge base? Do you want a list? Do you want a calendar? And so now you're a la carte picking what you
Yep.
want.
Because I know this is backwards. I totally know I'm going backwards. But the way my mind thinks about it is always just, I have a folder and I have a folder for every X or every Y. And in my folder, I can put anything I want to. So I can have a spreadsheet in my folder. I can have a document in my folder. I can have images in my folder, right? What are
Mhm.
all these things that I need in order to do and have the information and resources to do something, to affect
For the
something?
gift and the curses, Sarah, right? Because as Uncle Ben said, with great power comes great responsibility. Too much freedom and too much
Yes.
flexibility, what you're describing, can be overwhelming.
If we didn't have looming out over here, not to say loom, but something over here that is going to make that easier to access and to find for us. I think
I
I
see
think
what you're saying.
hierarchies for me right now, I'm kind of on a podium about this internally that I'm like, don't worry about the hierarchy, just make sure
It's in
Rovo
there.
can find it.
Yeah.
So don't get, not getting hung up on where do I put something. Just make sure it's in a place that I can go, hey, Rovo, go find this thing for me. Hey,
So
Rovo,
Sarah,
go find all the things related to this. And I keep feeling like these are all the little baby steps we're taking to get to that point.
so there's comfort in the madness.
It's somebody else's, it's Rovo's problem to take care of. We don't have to worry about it. We just start creating this reliance on something else to go find it all. Like if this was my household, then I am Rovo. Where's this? Where's that? Right? Where did I leave my shoes? Where's my belt? What time is the game?
Look at
Who's
this.
coming over tonight? What are the plans? Like all those little details. I'm the detail person in my household and I keep all of those details. And so everybody asks me and they don't have to think about it. All they know is interface with me and they get what they need. And that's what I think can
So
be
that goes in hand with what we were talking about with Sharif last week about, I don't know if you've caught up with Sharif's episode last week, but he was saying
did.
like Jira is an AI first tool now.
Yeah.
And so given that it's an AI tool first, then this makes sense. So have this structure where you have Loom, you have your
Mhm.
forms, you have your whiteboards from Confluence, you have your dashboards, you have your docs, you have everything all in one place. And maybe now ClickUp's got its biggest competitor, Jira.
Right. And then that panel, like I said, just goes away eventually.
Oh, and look at this. And you can also pin them just like you can in Jira now. I wonder where Atlassian's product teams were getting inspirations from.
I'm going to reference the idea of pyramids here. And once upon a time when, much younger and thinking, oh my God, there's pyramids all over the world. Clearly aliens built all of these pyramids because how could they all have the same structure, right? Something must have happened. And then I'm sure on some Nova episode one time, I saw somebody who was just basically pouring grains of sand out. And the grains of sand naturally just formed a shape that was like a pyramid that could be replicated, right? There was sturdiness to it. And it wasn't that, one person had this or one alien even had that and made it all around. So I think it's a case of when things make sense, they make sense.
Yeah, but this is almost too scary, right? Like, what if Atlassian gets themselves into a whole iOS versus Android or Samsung versus Apple iPhone situation? Because look at this search bar. Where's my Jira?
Common design patterns is what you're looking at.
Look at this
Those are
search
just
bar.
common design patterns.
Right. But it's too common.
No.
Too
Okay, then you would have to say the same thing about websites from way back when. Websites have always gone through these iterations of, hey, now this is the design pattern everybody's following, whether as we're talking about navigation on the top, navigation on the side. Hey, how many thousands of websites once upon a time had a banner image, had a static left panel, had the ability to find things, right? There are design patterns that sort of naturally evolve. And I don't know that it's like one is the gold standard, but we start following them. I am old enough, in fact, to remember.
I think it has to do with the user, right? It depends how the users are used to using it. Because if you look at like stores, right, they'll line up their things based on their population in the area. So it's kind of similar in the website area. They're gonna You can't be putting a search bar somewhere else when people are used to the search. It's up here, especially like in search engines too. You go up here too.
Yep.
Yeah, you gotta meet. You gotta, as a tool developer, you gotta meet your client or their user where they're at, and keep that design across. I just think it's. I don't want to use the word shady because it's not the right word, but
it's not.
And deceptive is not the right word either. But those are the only two words that uncomfortable.
You're uncomfortable for sure.
I think you have an identity of who you are as a tool. And this is obviously adding a lot of personification to a tool, but each tool has a unique DNA that makes them unique to the marketplace. And I don't like when you're taking the things that made Jira, and now it's just a PM tool, which is great for market share, but it's horrible for me as a lover of the tool. Well, because I love the tool. I don't just use Jira. Otherwise, I'd be on ClickUp. ClickUp is a tool that's 1,000 times better than Jira. But I love Jira. I don't love ClickUp. And I will stand by my. If you never use ClickUp, ClickUp is a tool that is significantly better than Jira.
Well, yeah. I mean, do you want something that is so specific to your needs, or do you want something that can fulfill enterprise level needs?
No, I don't know.
I think that's where Atlassian is going, right? Like Shrew said, they're trying to adapt it to everybody. So the majority of the people want these kind of changes, or they wouldn't be doing them.
Because I'm thinking of Notion as well, right? Like if you look at the Notion setup, I'm pretty sure it's a very similar setup.
Where you have your documents and it kind of makes sense because like Sarah and Chris were saying, right? It doesn't matter where you put it anymore because you're gonna have Robo to go find it. You're just gonna tell it, as long as the most important thing is for people to have data in there. Because if you don't have data, then Robo can't do anything. So it doesn't matter where you dump the item you need, as long as you put it in your instance, then Robo will be able to find everything.
Yeah. Well, here I am inside of.
You will not need to be organized. You just need to make sure that Robo can find it, and that's it. And it'll be kind of like a search engine, basically.
Right, that's fair. But Sarah, then let's talk about the flatness that we were talking about the other day, right? Because the project and the board, to a certain level, it adds hierarchy to the work. Right? You have tiers because a project is the ultimate container, but then your boards kind of fragment out your work.
So we'll go with filters.
Yeah, or at least allow you to group it, right? But if it's all just one, like if you were to just pull in a board and your board has all your work, I don't know how I feel about this. I don't like this.
I like this comment. I like this comment from Chris, right?
This one?
Because I used to burn a lot of time trying to figure out where do I put this thing I want to write down without writing the thing down. So then I feel like a lot of people feel that way.
This is why I have a whiteboard and I just put everything there.
Yeah, so see you have a whiteboard. You like the idea of just having some place to put things, right? But you don't. For you, a whiteboard, since it's physical, you can't search it. But Jira has robots, so putting it anywhere is gonna make it easy for people to just put their ideas down.
You're telling me my brain's finally gonna get organized and make sense?
If you put it in Jira.
or the place that works for you, right? Yeah. And I think that's part of it. Yeah, because Chris, oh my God, the actual the mental load of that is so huge when you sit there and you're like, I don't know where to go with this, and that becomes the blocker to actually sharing knowledge. And
and
they don't scale.
Yeah,
no, I mean, I think it's gonna be. I think Josh's picture here, right, is Atlassian, after changing projects to spaces, like I think the admin in me is gonna fight it, but I think I like this because again I like ClickUp a lot, and I see a lot of similarities here. And I think it's the right move. I think Atlassian, as they try to grow market share and they're trying to get the next 300,000 customers, this makes a lot of sense. I still wouldn't have called it Spaces if I would have only called it Spaces if Atlassian is committing to at some point converge Confluence, right? Just make it like a single tool. Then that makes sense.
Maybe that's a clue. Maybe they are putting it together.
Let's have the Blue's Clues of Atlassian. and then we can put them on your whiteboard, Alex, and then it'll be like we're trying to solve a murder mystery, and we'll get all our clues together and eventually be able to go yes.
Well, because do you have a Confluence instance that do you mind sharing? Because if you look at Confluence, right, it has pages, calendar. What else?
Yeah, how much overlap? Is that where you're going, Lena?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what else do they just need to bring in, and Confluence is one with Jira.
That's kind of what we're starting at, right? You already see all the Loom integration in there everywhere. And so yeah, all you really need to do is at this point is like board.
Or like the whiteboards? I see. The whiteboards.
Literally create a board. Like a Jira board.
No, I'm saying I don't think they'll get rid of Jira. They're gonna bring Confluence into Jira.
Yeah, okay, however you want to see it though, right? But I'm thinking that they're just gonna make it easy for somebody to just create a board or a whiteboard or a page or just create a one-off thing. Very similar to like in ClickUp, right? Oops.
Yeah.
Where I can
create.
Yeah, I can just create another board.
I see. Okay.
Or another. They call it a list, but it's the same thing, right?
And the opposite then becomes true. If we're talking about don't worry about where you're putting it and let the AI find it. I feel like it's the same though. Eventually, is let AI store it, do all of the work, right? Create the thing, and then just go, okay, where's this best held? And just let it put it away, and then have all of these little robots coming in, dragging and go here, right?
Rodney's funny.
What do you think? I can't wait to tease Rob about this in his next live stream.
Is he going to do another one of those? Yeah. There's a work item with my project. Wait, no, there was a work item with my space. Can we talk about the icon too? That one kind of makes me laugh though.
The new icon? Okay, yeah. Let me get like little spaceship?
Saturn there, right?
Yeah.
Oh, it's a planet. Okay, I see.
Is it the same one over here? Oh no, they use an Earth.
A globe.
Whatever. If this gets updated to be a little Saturn planet thing, then we got a problem. Then Atlassian's being too obvious.
And or just baby stepping us into the next thing.
Yeah, so it's funny, right? So we're gearing up for Team 25 Europe, and I know Mike and some of the Atlassian leadership team watch this, and they're probably going like, "Dang it, they're gonna know." They're gonna be so surprised when we announce this at Team 25 Europe.
Wow.
No insider knowledge has been known. We're literally playing Blue's Clues here.
Yes. Yes. And there's no reason to be subtle. You know what I mean? Bring your folks along with you as you do these things.
I feel like it would be a good change if they were to put them together.
Yeah. And so going back to this idea of hierarchy, right? So if we go back to the page announcing this upcoming change, and as we scroll down then what is a project, right? So they're using a bit of a better
a container
definition,
term.
Right? They're adhering to the definition of what a project really is a little bit better by putting that sort of even almost up higher as it relates to goals.
Right. And that's kind of where I was going to go with next, right? Because now when you start looking at home.atlassian.com, which is something they started teasing heavily at Team 25, then this project is not the same thing as the other project.
Ooh.
And so maybe this is where they want you to be thinking about your project, because now your projects are tied to goals, which wasn't something you would really do in a Jira project per se.
Right.
And so now this is more of a verb thing that you do.
You project or you project. It's already technically a verb, just has a little bit of a different definition.
As I said, a verbial. I don't know. Verbal.
But that's when it all, again, it's a hierarchy, but it starts making a little bit more sense. And because when they first came out with goals and projects, I think people are like, what? And fully understandable.
So
And
I wonder then, how much does Atlassian expect us then to work out of home, which is what is a crappy name then if this is the plan. Like I would come up with a new name, right? But
Mhm.
how much do they expect us to work out of home where it's the single convergence of all the Atlassian tools in one place for you? Where you do now ask Robo from here, and Robo knows everything from with every other tool. Because you kind of see it here on the left, right?
Yeah.
So one, I don't think it's a crappy name. You know why? Because I do
Oh, from a
websites, right?
product name, it is.
Websites. I do website on the side,
Yeah.
and whenever anyone is going, I need to go home. They think home. They don't think, oh, I gotta click on XYZ. They think home. So home is like the thing that
I
is.
would have
It's a
gone with
great
like
name.
company. I would have gone with like Hub or something. I don't know about home.
No, no, because
I'm
Hub
with
is more
Lena.
for news.
Okay.
Hub has like the thing like you go for company news, what's happening kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Versus home is like this is where my work is.
Go to the home button, right? How many times?
Mm-hmm.
It's just a natural thing. Go to the home button. Go to the home button. Yeah, we've got the website kind of mentality going, Lena, you and I.
Yeah.
But because you're right though. It goes back to the patterns, and that's why it's over there on the upper left.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yep.
Home.
that's where home
And
is.
it's also the darkest little icon up there.
Yeah, because let me see if I can find it. When they did the Team 25 announcement, they kind of had a nice picture of what they wanted this to look like. Let me turn off the audio.
I
But
don't remember. Did they announce anything on Confluence?
there was a couple of updates on Confluence, but here we go. This home. Let me see if I can get a clear picture, right? So this is kind of like the use case that he describes here makes sense when it's all just this is the centrifuge of everything. Like everything comes to the home app, and you know what pages you need to go work on. You know what pages you're being requested to be like,
That
request something info from you and stuff like that.
that makes sense for like your day-to-day user, right?
Yeah, you go
'Cause
to one place.
most of the people that use Jira are day-to-day users. You do have the admins, right? Now, should Jira create a special area just for admins?
Well, I was kind of
Yes.
thinking, I was thinking something very similar, but does Jira then become a manager's tool? Like does Confluence and and Jira become the tool where like your project managers or product managers work out of, because the end user doesn't care about it. Then at the end of the day, the end user just needs to know what's the task that I need to do next.
Oh, I see. And the user uses the home side area.
Yeah, and then like the strategic people
Use the Jira and
use
Jira.
Jira, they use Confluence, they put the information in.
Mm,
Mm-hmm. Yes,
makes
yes, yes,
sense,
yes.
yeah.
So here's my theory on some of this stuff. Going back to the concept of home again for a moment, because I also think about social media, right? And so we have a whole generation who's growing up on social media.
Mm-hmm.
And, you and I talk websites, they talk social media. So what is that social media interface? We're kind of looking at that as well. So if I'm on Instagram and I hit the home icon on Instagram, there's my feed. There's
Mm-hmm.
the things I am interested that I am following. But in this case, now this is also bringing in, here are the things that I need to work on, things I need to be aware of and things I need to work on. So that's at that layer. And then to the point of, does it become this tool? Does it become that tool? Does it become a tool for somebody else? Yes. And so even and something I've seen little hints here and there, and I don't know if I'm right, wrong, or just out of my mind, but now on an issue details, sorry, let me rephrase that.
Work
On a
item.
work item details screen, if they're still called details, there's now an option for like I can't remember exactly what it's called, but there's an option to kind of switch your view of the screen, right? So you can go to I think it's collaboration mode maybe, versus
The
seeing
heck are
all
you
of the
talking about?
details over on the right panel.
On the right
And what
one.
I'm
Sorry, you're smoking something.
Personally,
What kind of Jira are you on?
go up top, go up top. No, it's on one of my environments. Okay, on one of my environments there is, and I've seen other people post about it, is there is another option that'll be right around the to-do that's going to give you a different way. It's going to basically reset those fields so that your comments and your history, right, everything that's now in the main
At the
panel
bottom?
on the bottom becomes top of the right, because those are the things you're interested in. Maybe as when you're in a meeting and you want to, hey, let's talk about this particular
Let's
work
see how
item.
ClickUp does it.
So it has these different.
The activities up front.
So what I'm hoping is, to your point, Alex, is that we get to this point of like a hyper personalization, so that I could come into a detail. It knows my persona. I'm a project manager. I'm a manager. I'm a scrum master. I'm a developer, right? I'm a marketing person, even to that point. And that there are views that can be set up that are specific to the things that I'm interested in, to really take away all the other quote unquote noise about something.
Yeah, no, but I totally get that. But again, as the admin, I hate that, because that's just crap I have to now maintain, because somebody's gonna want to do it, and they're like, I don't know how to do it, and clicking buttons
And
is hard.
all this crap that keeps me employed.
You're like, I just
change
need
that
food for my
attitude,
kids.
Alex. Right? Right? It's always a challenge. It's like, oh, dang it, why can't they just ax? But if they ax,
Then they ask me.
then we're axed.
I just want an easy job, Sarah. I just don't want to work hard. That's probably what the problem is.
Well, here's the other good news though, Alex. You love training, right? And you love to get involved in the training. So just levels and levels and levels of training that
Yeah, we just get to redo all of our stuff. No, but here's the thing though. Like, here's where I find the challenge, right? Because when I'll tell you the story about ClickUp, right? So about I don't know, 6 months ago, somebody's like, "Hey, Alex, can you help me out with ClickUp?" And I'm like, "I'm not your ClickUp guy. Like, I'm Dr. Jira for a reason, right?" And the guy's like, "No, we want you to do it." And I'm like, "I literally don't do ClickUp." And he's like, "You'll be fine." I'm like, "All right, whatever." So he's like, "Alex, I need you to do this, this, and this, and this." And I'm like, "Jira can't do any of that." And so I'm like, "Do this in ClickUp." And here's the article, and here's the documentation. I was like, so all 4 tasks that I thought were impossible in Jira, I was pleasantly surprised to find out that ClickUp could do it. I was like, wow, this thing is very powerful. But the thing is, had that requirement not come in, I would have just been overwhelmed by the sheer power of the tool.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to do it because somebody was asking me something specific, and I'm like, I'm good at Googling. Ask my wife, right? And because I'm good at Googling, then I'm like, okay, so now I know this capability. But how do you learn a tool that can do everything or anything? And that's what I'm afraid of Jira becoming, because then it's a tool that is very hard to teach. And it's a tool that's very, very hard to learn, and you're gonna learn on a use case by use case perspective.
So
Versus I still can go to my closet over there and pull out my 300 page of Jira version 5 that was in sequential order on how to use Jira. And that's kind of that's how I learned.
So I don't think you're seeing it the way I'm seeing it, right? I think the future of this tool is gonna be where the admins dictate how the company runs the actual thing. So do set it up so the users can only see like that home, right? They'll see their what they need to do. They don't care what's going on in the background, right?
Yes.
The project managers and the scrum masters see the board, right? They don't care what's going on in the background.
but here's the problem with that, Lena. And that is, as the architects of the tool, we tend to think, and then this is where I think Sarah has an unfair advantage, right? Because like you and I, we're very binary, right? We are very engineer zeros and ones. Most IT tech people are zeros and ones. You need to learn how to see in color for all this to make sense. And we see very black and white.
Which is why they're adding colors to projects or to the backgrounds of spaces now.
But it's a different part of the brain we don't have.
No, but I feel like you're overthinking it. I feel like they're gonna give you the company will give you the requirements, what they want to do, right? You set up what they want to do,
They won't.
That's what they get. They don't get to see like when you build like again coming down to websites, right? You don't get to see the back end of it. You only see the front of it. The
Yeah, but that's also why you have a difference between a web designer and a web developer. They're not the same people. Look at the
Agreed.
websites we've tried to design. They're crap because we know how to code, not design. And
I'm gonna throw out another entirely crazy analogy for you guys.
another
So
marriage tip is Sarah just gonna do marriage counseling for us?
no. This isn't about that. This is about adaptability
And how
and
you should
about
adapt with
using
your partner
software
for a long marriage.
and about, again, what are the generations of folks coming up, right? What is their experience versus our experience? And I think everybody knows I'm a different generation than
No,
Alex.
you're
Like,
not.
technically, what's your generation, Alex and Elena?
I'm 89. She's 87, so
Are you?
86.
I'm 86.
I
Whatever.
don't remember what that
What are
makes.
what do they call us?
I can't remember because
We're
I'm
millennials. We're still millennials.
Oh,
right.
okay.
So you're right after X. So is X millennials?
So 81 through 86 is millennials. So X is up to 80.
Yeah. So I'm an X, right? And
Okay.
you're a millennial.
Yeah.
So my experiences, how a TV worked, changed a lot while I was growing up.
Well, you didn't like
Changed a
standing
lot
next to the
to,
TV
like,
holding the antenna?
right. Yes. Like, I have foiled an antenna. All right, my friend. I have literally tuned in stations on TV. So all of those things changed, right? Like, I did not I remember the advent of Tetris, right? Being like one of the first video games that I had an awareness of, which leads me into my point next. And I know this is probably crazy, but if it resonates with anybody. So as my kids are playing games right now, and I'm thinking about Roblox and I'm thinking about Fortnite, those games have a crap ton of rules, right? Or they can have a crap ton of rules. And all the items that they're getting. And honestly, I'm learning part of this because I've gotten really addicted to this not new book
Are
series.
you on the garden too?
Carl.
Because I started growing my garden last night.
Nice.
Me too.
But these rules are these games have a lot of rules. And then as they're collecting these bits, right, there's rules even associated with the bits. And so my point I'm not doing a great job at making, though,
The
is
tool needs to
that
adapt for
these
the next
generations
gen.
are growing up
Yeah.
with these,
Yeah.
understanding things are complex, things have a lot of rules. And then there's a great onus on the product managers, on the UX folks to make it all possible. But then knowing, I think there's a whole other revolution,
Yeah.
evolution coming not too far that will make it even easier.
And that's how you stay alive as well. As a
Right.
as a tool, right? That's how Atlassian goes into the next 25 years. By not being clear case and clear quest, it's still only for Gen X.
and and something like ClickUp, I don't know this for certain, but my guess is something like ClickUp doesn't have all of that legacy behind it.
Yeah,
So
no,
it can
because it's such a
adapt a
new
little
tool,
bit
yeah.
faster still, right? And then it's going to go through its cycles to where it's going to have its literal baggage that it has to deal with.
Yeah.
Unless something massive changes, which it will.
And going with Sarah's thing about social media, right? Our kids are used to having everything instantaneous, like right there, right? Like front and center. They don't want to go clicking everywhere to go find what they want to find. It's gonna be all there. So I think Atlassian is setting
They're also
themselves for
used to the
that kind of.
noise. They're also used to the noise, the signals, because that's like half that when I'm trying to play Roblox, I'm overstimulated by the things you can do. And I'm like, where do I start? I need to find this is why I like Jira because it has a starting point. But when you take that starting point away, that's why I'm like,
yeah, Alex always has to start at a corner. Always.
but yeah. So I mean, and I think especially on cloud, I haven't noticed it in data center because I'm not working so much with new instances in data center. But just the amount of tooltips that are coming through now, and the amount of, hey, let me walk you through something, I think is significantly better than it was. And I think it's an age-old problem, though, of no matter if it's a tool or a process, onboarding folks to things is always going to be a challenge, whether it's overwhelming or not, whether somebody thinks it's overwhelming or not. I think they're doing a much better job though.
Mm-hmm.
And now anybody new coming into it, it's us who have been around it for a while, right?
Yeah,
and
OGs
it's
are good.
now this new load on us to go, oh, I have this whole new language that I
Yeah.
have to kind of use and remember and try to say to people, and I want to resist, but
And I
resist.
know how my parents feel about having to use a computer.
Dude, the rest of your freaking life, you are gonna go, now I understand.
No, I understand my
I
parents.
know what this feels like. I heard
Life
them
catches
say
up
this.
to you, man. It's catching up to us, Lena.
What was that?
I said life catches up to you, and it's caught up.
I know. And so, yeah, but all of that said, holy cow, am I tired of it? I mean, there's just no way around it. I am truly tired from it. I'm not saying it tired in a, like, oh God, just stop it kind of way, but I'm tired.
Yeah, no, I can empathize there. Well, on that note, Sarah, I think we should wrap this one up. I think this has been a good discussion. Emergency episode. We wanted to strike while the iron was hot. Atlassian's renaming projects to spaces. Let us know down in the comments what you think. Are you on Team Jira projects? Are you on Team Jira or Confluence spaces? Because it's still unclear. But either way, let us know down in the description. And if you haven't subscribed, we're trying to hit 2,000 subscribers, and we're almost there. So make sure you smash the subscribe button, drop a like, and share with your team. And let's get the conversation going down there in the comments. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Lena.
Bye.
Oh, boy.